Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Here to talk all things hockey are your hosts, Brad Crisco, Ryan Hanna, and Evan Lobsinger.
I don't care about the trades. I don't care about the coach that was fired. I don't care about the Red Wings losing over and over again. All I've been able to think about for the last 24 hours is Alexis Lafreniere's 7-point game. And I told myself I wouldn't do this like we did with Hughes, like we did with Dahlin, where it was first overall or bust. We're going to examine the top 4, the top 5 thoroughly, so we're comfortable no matter where the Red Wings draft. He has 99 points in 44 games.
He had 7 points before, the end of the second period, was it?
Yes, I'm not even sure they played him in the third. It was like when an NFL team rests the quarterback in the fourth quarter for safety reasons when they're up by 30.
It's when Wayne Gretzky played minor hockey and they stopped him after his 13th point of the game or something like that. He scored 130 goals in 30 Pee-wee games. Yeah.
Lafreniere might do that if he goes back to the Q next year.
I was forced to watch the Red Wings Pittsburgh game, and I'll get into that in a minute, but I was forced to watch the game, and after finishing it, mercifully, all I could think was, I know for a certainty that there are a ton of players in this top 10 that the Red Wings could pick from and have it be a good pick that could reasonably be a franchise player or their future best player on the team, and it still feels like Lafreniere bust. It still feels like if they don't win the draft lottery, I'm going to have to do some Steve Dangle LFR after a devastating loss to the Sabres de-stress.
I would do a video if the Red Wings lost the draft lottery, but is there anybody out there who truly wants to watch 12 minutes of me just screaming and ugly crying?
That is what our live stream will be. We should.
On the contrary, on the counter though, if they win it, does anybody just want to see or watch me happy cry for 12 minutes?
I was going to say, it's still going to be 12 minutes of screaming and ugly crying.
Yeah. The context will be the only difference.
Wildly different. It's fun. I think, you know what? I want to give us some props here because I think we've done a good job of landing in a spot where we're objective, but we're not kidding ourselves when we talk about the emotional impact of these things. And I like that because I don't know that we could have come on the other side of this where we have to remain completely neutral and we just have to say, Lafreniere goes to the Wings or Wings win the first overall. Mind you, if we're being paid by a team or a media outlet, then it's a whole different story. But I'm very glad we get our 12 minutes of ugly crying. I am very excited for our live stream. We haven't done.
I'm not.
But that's good. That's perfect. That's the best content for them. Sometimes when we say, why do we have to do this? Why are we doing this? Because they enjoy our pain, Brad.
It's a valid point.
Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. I'm Ryan Hanna.
I'm not ugly crying yet.
And in place of Evan today, we have bobblehead Ken and Mick. Again, Evan is gone for good reason, so do not berate him today. Though
he's working on a holiday. That's not a good excuse.
Yeah, why is he working on a holiday?
I don't know.
I hope he's making double time.
I work at a place that never closes, and we're closed today.
He's I feel like double time for Evan though would be $600,000 a year or just about.
Yeah,
he's got to be a millionaire, right? We just don't know it.
Yeah.
Lots to talk about on this Winged Wheel podcast. The trade market is heating up. We're going to talk prospects. We're going to talk Red Wings. Some wild stuff is happening around the league. The hockey world is buzzing right now.
Yes. And I can't make sense of it.
Do we want to do more prospects now, or do we want to just let's open with the trade market?
No, we'll go back into prospects later.
All right. The trade market was, it started up with Toronto acquiring Jack Campbell, and we've already talked about that. And yeah, that was an impactful move if you consider the context, which is that Toronto is an insanely talented team that's at risk of missing the playoffs. But in the end, it was a trade for a backup goaltender. The big trade was Pittsburgh shooting their shot and acquiring Jason Zucker from Minnesota. And this was, I think, the 4th or 5th time he's been traded without actually being traded in exchange for Galchenyuk, Addison, and a conditional first-round pick. Did we already talk about this?
Yes, we did.
That's right. We did talk about this.
That's when I got into my side tangent about Galchenyuk being a low-key good free agent for Detroit to target this summer.
And just while we're here, and I know I said this about Rutherford, but you know what, man? Good for you. You shot your shot. And he's going to continue shooting his shot. And as much as we've ripped on his asset management and everything, he's won 2 cups. Pittsburgh's won 3 cups with this era of the team, and he's going for making it 4.
We rip on his asset management because it's been very poor in one stance. But in another stance, his asset management has been immaculate because his 2 biggest assets, Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, he still possesses. So as long as he holds on to those 2 assets, they're a cup contender.
If Pittsburgh is not going to win again for 30 years after Malkin and Crosby leave, that's fine because they already have 3 cups, which is 93 years worth of cup wins if you level it out evenly, like 1 cup per team. So really, Rutherford, yeah, sure, maybe pays too high of a price for guys like Reeves or whatever, but at the same time, he doesn't let his team act or play like a middling team. He knows if they have the talent, he pushes them over the edge every time and gives them a chance. So kudos to him. That takes a spine. That takes some big brass ones. So he's going to shoot a shot. The big trade that really made us all think, whoa, this trade market is wild with this pricing right now, is Blake Coleman, who's a good player.
He's over 20 goals this year already.
Traded from New Jersey to Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay does his usual acquisition of a very good talent, and he's cost controlled. He has 2 more years at $1.8 million, I believe, in exchange for Nolan Foote and a conditional first-round pick that belongs to Vancouver.
So a higher first-round pick than Tampa Bay's own pick will be.
And if Vancouver doesn't make the playoffs this year, which they will, probably, I think. I can't remember.
That division, I'm not making any predictions.
It gets transferred to next year instead, but still. Look, I think Blake Coleman's a very underrated asset. I think people don't really know how good he is, but wow, that's a high price to pay for him.
Blake Coleman's a very good, very useful player at a very good cap hit. Nolan Foote is a prospect who, if he pans out as he should, which right now it looks more likely than not that he will, is a power play specialist who's capable at 5-on-5. So basically think Michael Rasmussen, but a shooter instead of a net front guy, which is probably more valuable, honestly. And a first round pick that should probably be falling somewhere between picks 15 and 22. In theory, those assets should both pan out to be better than Blake Coleman. You would hope Nolan Foote scores more than a Coleman will. You should hope that he's a more well-rounded player than a Coleman will be, because Coleman's one of those bottom 6 guys who's just having a really, really good year. And a mid-first round pick should turn into a usable middle 6 forward again who should score 20-ish goals. So even if neither of those assets completely adds up to a Blake Coleman, by themselves, combined, it would take some seriously bad luck to not be more valuable. Now, again, Tampa's in it to win it now, and he is cost controlled, and he has a good cap hit, which is going to be very valuable for Tampa Bay because they're going to be up against it again this summer. But man, I have a hard time believing you couldn't negotiate down from what they did.
Coleman he's at his 2nd consecutive 20-goal season. Great. I'm looking at his HockeyViz visualizations. Great on ice impact. Not a high producer. His career high in points. He's been in the league 4 years, including this one, and his career high is last year at 36. He's due to pass that, but still, I mean, good for them. Like you're not trading for guys that are going to beat out your Stamkoses and your Kucherovs and your Hedmans. Like he's not going to take that role in the team. But if he's your depth, that's the kind of thing that Tampa Bay needs. So. Again, we can't praise.
Did Tampa really need anything, though?
They haven't won it yet, right? They've had a playoff caliber, or a Stanley Cup caliber roster for how long now, and they haven't won it yet. So we just praised Rutherford for doing what he's doing with Pittsburgh. How is this not Tampa Bay's GM? Julian Brisebois not doing the exact same thing?
It is the exact same thing. And Tampa would have 3 cups by now if it wasn't for some seriously bad luck. With Bishop getting injured in the finals, Stamkos getting injured, Tyler Johnson at like the worst possible time. For as good as Tampa's been, there might not be a more cursed franchise in the NHL right now than them, because in the last 6 years, I would argue maybe 6 or 7 years, I would argue strongly they should have 3 cups. And they have 0.
The thing about luck in hockey is it's never going to go away. So you're not wrong, Brad. I think you're right in saying that bad luck is what's caused them to suffer a little bit more. You know, sometimes I think they fell apart with the Columbus series, but bad luck has had a big part to play in it. But bad luck will always be a part of hockey. Hockey is a game of luck more than any other professional sport. So what do? You make yourself so good where if the luck, you know, impacts you at a -10 on any given night, you still might win the game. That's what Pittsburgh's trying to do. That's what Toronto, you know, that's their model. Although,
Are they really?
you just got pumped by Buffalo. So, it's a high price. I think if you're looking at this in a vacuum and you're putting it on a scale, yeah, it's going to tip one way. Can you fault Tampa Bay? Yeah, maybe. But if it brings them to the conference finals or the cup finals, or, you know, Coleman scores a couple game-winning goals, they're not going to care. It's like when we talk about a guy who has a horrendous contract, an 8-year contract, but in the first 3 years, he gets them a cup or two. They don't care at all about the next 5 years. It doesn't matter how bad that contract is. It doesn't matter how much of an anchor it is for the team. Do you think we'd be talking about how terrible Justin Abdelkader or Franz Nielsen's contracts are if they were, you know, miraculously better players and won the Red Wings Cups? No. So these are the kind of trades where you can either work within the margins and try to wait for the luck to go your way, or you buck up and shoot your shot because no GM is going to give you a player like Coleman for nothing. Or it's Peter Chiarelli, but he's not employed in the NHL right now. Now that brings us to the point of, if the prices are this high and the market's this scarce, what does that mean for the Red Wings and Steve Yzerman?
Well, who's the most similar player the Red Wings have to a Blake Coleman? Probably Darren Helm.
Well,
you'd have to eat half the cap to get it close, and he doesn't produce as much offense, but they fill a similar role. So could Darren Helm legitimately get a second-round pick?
I think,
which is a question that I would have thought asinine 3 days ago. If you'd have said, yeah, Darren Helm could get a second pick, I'd have laughed in your face. I still think it's a stretch, but maybe.
He's playing great hockey right now. He's not young. His contract's not great. They would have to retain cap hit. Yeah.
Half,
and that's fine.
least.
The Red Wings can do it. But like,
well, he can't do more than half. But yeah, so they would have to do half.
Coleman has 20 goals. Helm has 9, and that's a good year for him. His career high is 15, and that was 5-6 years ago. So it's not.
You're basically, with Darren Helm, you're getting all of Blake Coleman and about half the offense.
Essentially. I still think that's selling Coleman a little short, but I understand the point you're making.
Although 9 goals on the current iteration of the Detroit Red Wings is probably worth 15 on any other team, if we're being honest.
Now, I have this question for you. Would you, if you're a team with the talent to be overpaying for assets like this, would you not rather pay for an underperforming Athanasiou that you can work into your very talented system and amplify, rather than an overperforming Darren Helm?
It depends on the team's needs. I would absolutely rather trade for Athanasiou, but because I would absolutely rather trade for an Athanasiou means I would much rather keep an Athanasiou. Nothing has changed my mind on the should we trade or keep Athanasiou. I still think the most value he could yield to the Red Wings is as a Red Wing. That being said, though, if Blake Coleman gets a first and Nolan Foote, if you're Edmonton and you're giving us a first and Caleb Jones, Evan Bouchard, Tyler Benson. Yeah, hell yeah.
If a first and Evan Bouchard is given up for Athanasiou, I will punch myself in the face on camera. I don't know why that's my reaction, but it's that absurd of a... Like,
I would have told you a first and Nolan Foote for Blake Coleman was but also absurd, and here we are. So,
in fairness, Coleman does play defense, which...
No, he doesn't. He's a forward.
No. Like, he plays a defensive game.
Oh,
he's responsible defensively.
Yeah.
And Athanasiou is not.
Defensively, but Edmonton's a team built on speed. I think, honestly, I think Edmonton would have more interest in Darren Helm. Because I think Holland realizes Edmonton's not in a position to contend this year, even though they're in a playoff spot, I think leading the division at the moment, actually. So he's probably willing to buy, but much like his trades when he was in Detroit, he's looking at the Legwans, the Ericoles. He's not swinging for the fences yet. So given that he could probably get Darren Helm reasonably for a third and a fourth, I think that would appeal to him more, because Edmonton's needs isn't in their top 6. It's in their bottom 6.
We're a year removed from Athanasiou putting up 30 points or 30 goals and nearly 60 points. So yeah, Coleman's going to fetch more value now because of how he's been playing recently, but it's not far-fetched for Red Wings fans to be saying what they've been saying, which is if this is what Coleman goes for, Athanasiou should be able to catch a king's ransom, provided a team has the want. With a shallow market, there also comes a shallow amount of suitors often. It's not always that there's people clamoring for it. So it does beg the question, will Athanasiou be sold, or is it going to be, like Brad mentioned, someone lower end, lower risk, where you don't have to give up so much in terms of assets, like Darren Helm? And another point to you is Holland's gone on the record to say, like, he wasn't expecting this year to be this good. And a lot of that's coming because he has 2 superstar top 5 players on the planet on his team. So McDavid goes down, and Draisaitl's proving the point as to why he should maybe even win the Hart this year. He's at 95 points. It's February. I think that's a 130 point clip or something. So that's going to win you games that you weren't expecting to win. But do you still stay the course and try to build a foundation for this team that hasn't had a foundation since Gretzky? Or do you do what Pittsburgh's doing right now, what Tampa Bay is doing right now?
I think you have to, everything is situational. You look at Edmonton right now, they have a lot of really good prospects right on the cusp of being good. Bouchard should be up full time next year. Broberg's only a year or 2 away. Tyler Benson's getting his first look in the NHL. Caleb Jones has looked competent. Kyler Yamamoto's just come up and looking amazing. I think the Oilers are on the precipice of doing something very special for a long time. That's not this year. Give these guys time to develop and then see how it goes next year with a good chunk of these guys in the lineup that gives Edmonton hopefully that depth that they don't have right now. I think if you're Edmonton, you can sell off picks, not your first. Any other pick should be on the table just because the West is wide open this year. Is there any team that you look at and go, they are unbeatable, especially in the Pacific where they might not play a Central Division team until the conference finals if they go that far, right? Mm-hmm. So I think they could add depth. I wouldn't give up any premium assets, but if I'm Edmonton and next year starts off the way this year has, that's when I start my Pittsburgh mentality of, okay, every year we have our core, we have our Brobergs, our Bouchards, our Bensons, whoever, everything else can go.
It's a little reminiscent of like NBA, like you start to load up on superstars. Like we saw this happen with, D Wade and LeBron and Bosh when that happened. And then everyone kind of caught on to the formula of build around 3 megastars and then whatever else happens. It's not the same. They're wildly different sports. Hockey's a team sport, no matter how good you are. Even Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby can only do so much. But yeah, like you start to reward those guys who are producing. If you have 4, 5, 6 guys producing, that's when you start to mortgage futures for it. So I think you're right. I think you don't do that much this year. But then again, just because we think that's what they shouldn't be doing.
I'm not saying they shouldn't buy this year. I'm saying they shouldn't be swinging for the fence.
Right
now, with how close Edmonton is to being good, most second, third, fourth round picks are generally speaking 2, 3, 4, 5 year projects. They don't care about 3, 4, 5 years from now because they should have their core and base established by then. So it's their immediate prospects and their high picks right now that they need to keep. Everything else can be on the table. So again, circling back, if I'm Edmonton, I am not giving up a first round pick for Andreas Athanasiou. And given what Tampa paid for Coleman, to me, that is now the market for Athanasiou. If it's anything less than a first and a foot quality player, I don't entertain it.
I would take a little less.
I wouldn't. And then I'm not paying that if I'm Edmonton, but if conditional second or a third round pick is on the table for a Darren Helm, even a fourth, yeah, I do it in a heartbeat to solidify my bottom 6, especially for a guy like Ken Holland, who's very familiar with Darren Helm. His numbers won't pop out you, but the value he's going to bring outside of that. He's one of the best penalty killers in the league. He's defensively responsible. He's a great forechecker. He just can't finish. He's good at everything in the game of hockey, but actually finishing the plays.
He and Glendening, like we give Babcock and Blashill a lot of flack for how much they loved Helm and Glendening, but it was for good reason. Like they're referred to as coaches, players for good reason. They do every single thing right that a coach wants you to do. He wants you to grind hard. He wants you to work in the corners. He wants you to go to the right spots. He wants you to hustle. He wants you to, keep your defensive coverages.
They just don't have the natural talent required to produce offense.
No, exactly. But I got someone made some kind of snide comment to me, which is I deserve it almost all the time. Luke Glendening, I made some kind of comment about Luke Glendening in a positive way, and they said, "You really think Luke Glendening is a desirable or would be an NHL player on any other team?" I went, "Yeah, Luke Glendening would be a great bottom six player on any team in the NHL. And if you're a team like Toronto that has like an insane amount of top end forwards, you'd still be a great fourth line player, and then bam, you have the kind of depth that you need to make a deep playoff run in terms of your forwards." I'm not saying that every team needs Luke Glendening, but I'm saying, yeah, he's absolutely an NHL player on every team. I think this Red Wings team is bad, and I think the fact that Luke Glendening and Darren Helm have been used as first and second liners is particularly bad. Like, that's a bad sign, but it doesn't mean that they're bad. They're great at their roles. And you know what? They've more than held their own when they've had to slot into the top six. By no means should that ever happen. If you're ever seeing that, you know that the Red Wings are in a bad spot. But they held their own. They did a lot better than other players have and are continuing to do up there. So the slander and hate that comes against Helm and Glendening is funny because they've just been so consistently good as bottom six players.
It's the age-old argument on the internet, or however you want to phrase it. Hate the contract, not the player.
Yeah.
I love Darren Helm as a player. I would never have give him that contract. That was insane. Great player. Glendening, his cap hit's reasonable, but I would have never given a fourth line player 4-year term or whatever it was.
No, you just don't do that.
Yeah. So you don't do that, which is fine.
He's low impact though. Like, it actually, you don't lose a wink of sleep over the Glendening deal.
No, you don't. But I think people get rattled over the contracts and they can't separate the contract from the player, et cetera, so on and so forth. And I think that's why they've been viewed in such a negative light. And again, same thing when they get bumped into the top six, like you said, the entire fan base groans, us included. That's not their call. The coach puts them there. They're not going to say, "Oh no, coach, I shouldn't be on the first line. Can I please go kill penalties again?" No, of course, any player, you're going to play with Larkin tonight. Yeah, coach, awesome. Yeah. So again, it's circumstance and context, and it gets taken out in the wrong things. But let's talk about market. Because if we want to go hot and heavy on the Athanasiou, what teams have the need, cap space, and or assets for an Athanasiou and arguably the desire? One team comes to mind immediately that we haven't mentioned yet.
For Athanasiou? Hold on, let me try to guess this.
One, cap space, assets, and they're in a spot in the standings where it makes a ton of sense for them.
Philadelphia.
Colorado.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? They just lost Kadri long term.
Yeah. And they have one of the deepest prospect pools in the league, $22 million in cap space. And in the West right now, one of the top 3 favorites to go to the finals at worst.
They're a team where they're good enough where if they wanted to make a swing like a Pittsburgh or a Tampa Bay swing, they'd be justified in doing so.
They could give up they could give up an Alex Newhook and not even bat an eye. Their prospect pool is so strong right now.
That was one, especially when Kadri went down long term. I thought, ooh, not the same players. Nobody's pretending they're the same player. Like, Kadri's a very effective centerman. But like, if you want to instill offense into your team and you just lost another good offensive piece, Athanasiou is the kind of like high flying wild card that you just want to throw in there.
And Athanasiou has team control, don't forget as well. His contract expires this year, but he's a restricted free agent. So the team,
which is just as valuable as future contract
years. So they can negotiate their own contract with him or do whatever they wanted. So he's not a rental. Everybody needs to get that price out of their head. That's one of the big reasons Coleman got as much as he did, because he is not a rental.
Colorado's first this year and second next year. Would you do it?
I would push harder for a better prospect than the second round pick. I think the first would, given the market, the first goes without saying. I would push for a pretty good prospect to them. Obviously, you'd start negotiating for like a Newhook, knowing it's probably not going to happen. But if you work your way down to Shane Bowers or something like that, that's still a good deal.
Speaking of market, let's talk about players more likely than not to be traded if there are going to be trades. We always get the question of which Red Wings are tradable, and the answer to that is literally all of them. That goes all the way down to Hronek, Larkin, and Zadina, and you might not like that, but it's real. There's no McDavid or Crosby on this team, but the thing is, in 0.0001% of realities is anyone giving up the price to get Larkin or Mantha or Zadina or Hronek. So just we'll put those off the table for now.
It's very, very not likely to happen. But if someone calls, Steve is not going to hang up the phone.
No. Players who are...
I will say, though, there is one untouchable asset in the entire Detroit Red Wings organization right now, and that is their 2020 first-round pick.
Exactly, because that could be Alexis Lafreniere.
Yep. And there might not be a more valuable player to trade for in the entire NHL right now than Alexis Lafreniere, given his age and talent level.
So guys who are considering a world where lots of trades happen, so that's this hypothetical we're living in right now, and then looking at the Red Wings roster, guys that are most likely to be dealt in that world. Andreas Athanasiou is there. I think Robbie Fabry is there as well.
I do not.
I think he gets calls.
He's going to get calls, but I don't think Yzerman's going to accept the price, and I don't think teams are going to offer that high for him because sample size. We've been watching Fabry for the last 3 months, and we've been amazed with Fabry. Other teams are going... The only 2 words of that sentence they picked out was 3 months.
Yeah, and that's right. That's exactly right. We see Fabry's future value. Other teams are like, there's no body of work. We want to buy low. Yzerman will set the price at his future value. Teams will not overpay for it.
And also the one thing that is very much worth noting that we have to keep in our minds when we're talking about selling everybody. What position are the Red Wings the thinnest at right now on the big league roster and their prospect system? It's forwards. They are not in a position to be giving up good top 6, top 9 forwards age 25 or under. They are not in the position to be able to do that comfortably. Because even outside of the team right now, who is in the system that really gets us excited? Veleno, yes. Rasmussen and Svechnikov for the most part, maybe Mastro Simone. And obviously, I'm assuming is more likely than not to take up forward with the 4th overall pick this year. So there's that. Yeah. Odds, and you have to hope they all hit. What are the odds all of them hit? 10%? 15%? If they all hit, then you have a top 9. So the Red Wings don't have the luxury of selling off forwards unless you're getting an absolute king's ransom in return.
That's a harrowing thing to think about because I think 10 to 15% is high. So yeah, you're looking at a very low percentage that everyone that they currently own hits, and then they have a viable top 9. Hui. So
in 3 years, how many of Master Simone, Rasmussen, Svechnikov, and Veleno do you see playing in the top 9 and producing, say, 40 points?
2.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer.
Okay, going down the rest of the list, Darren Helm and Luke Glendening are the 2 other obvious answers there.
For forwards.
Forwards.
And given their age, this is where you can afford to start dealing forwards.
Defense, Mike Green, his no trade clause has expired as of February 1st. Trevor Daley, if he gets healthy.
Is anybody actually going to want Trevor Daley? I've been watching him closely just to see, like, maybe there's a few things other teams will pick. There's no redeeming parts of his game right now. He's a train wreck. He would be addition by subtraction for the Red Wings right now. Just literally give him to another team and put any competent player in that spot, and the Red Wings are a better hockey team.
And you watch the way Trevor Daley's declined. It's not like how other players have declined who had a little bit more skill than him because they adapted. Like, they know they had to skate slower, or they could only skate so fast anymore. And so they adapted their positioning, but it looks like his fundamentals went out the window at the same time as all of his like raw talent. And it's really, he's really coasting on name value, and it's not going to be pretty when a team either gives up an asset for him or they sign him in the offseason. There's no world where I think Steve Yzerman brings him back. I think Steve Yzerman's talent assessment's a little bit better, unless he's really want for warm bodies, although Gustav Lindstrom has done really well, I think, in his first 7 or 8 games, however many it has been.
He's been acceptable.
Except Red Wings acceptable, so
Red
league-wide.
He's been acceptable by NHL standards. He's been top 3 by Red Wings standards.
Yeah. No, watching Trevor Daley is just, I clipped the games and I posted on Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. I have a whole folder of Trevor Daley stuff, And sometimes I have to hold back on posting everything that I see because it's too much. Granted, he's not the only one. Like, I don't think anyone should be giving up assets for Mike Green right now either. I think the days of him being a useful second.
I forget what chart I was looking at, but someone did like a controlled zone exit chart, and Mike Green was like top 20 in the league.
Really?
Yeah, it floored me.
Huh. Well, maybe I'm being too hard on Mike Green.
I think Mike Green suffers from a lot of. I don't think Green's been particularly great this year, but at the same time, I think he suffers from a lot of the problems that Dennis Cholowski did, in the sense that his game is so predicated on being surrounded by talent that he's getting hurt.
Oh,
more
God, yeah.
Relative to others, more so because of it.
Yeah.
Because he's the type of guy, his game gets exponentially better when he's surrounded with more talented players, where everybody's game is going to get better when they play with better players. But yeah, him and Cholowski are the two that I think are getting absolutely murdered by it.
And the last player who I think is most liable to be moved, if there is a world where a lot of these players are going to be moved, is goaltender Jonathan Bernier, who's having a phenomenal season.
He is. I think I'm at the point, unless there's a first on the table or a top prospect, I don't entertain it. I don't even think I'd trade Bernier for a second at this point.
I would still trade him for a second.
He's been playing Vezina caliber goaltending, and he's cap controlled, cost controlled for next season as well. He's at an age you could extend him another 3-4 years comfortably beyond that. To me, that's a very, very valuable asset to this organization. An organization right now who doesn't have an heir anywhere close to ready anywhere in the organization. It's Bernier for the next few years, or you're overpaying a free agent. Those are literally the options.
Or you're paying somebody no money and you just hope that they're fine.
And just, yeah, please, for the love of God, don't be Vesa Toskala.
Well, what they were doing before was, Jimmy Howard, who they were paying $4 million or 5 point whatever before that, and he sucked at times. Honestly, I was going to say, since 2020 came around, Jimmy Howard's been pretty great in net, but then that last stinker of a game he had, I was like, no one's going to move anything for him at this point.
No.
And that's understandable. He's put in a good career. He can't do what he used to do, and that is what it is. Again, like I don't think you're wrong about what Jonathan Bernier is to this team and how important that is to the future of this organization. I'm still of the unshakable notion that a 31-year-old goaltender is useful to you now, but if you hit on a second-round pick in the future, and that turns out to be, Kucherov's a dramatic example, but like a star player, a top 6 player, and that you get with that extra second-round pick,
that's very valuable. But again, as much as we'd like to just punt the entire team into the sun and get future assets, someone has to stop pucks for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Someone. They can't just parade out. They can't, if we're being honest, they can't parade Howard out next year. They just can't.
No.
He can't do it anymore.
I think he hangs him up. I think he hangs him up.
I hope so, because I don't want to see his leg. He's got a very strong legacy with the Red Wings. I don't want to see that tarnished by a few crappy years, kind of like Martin Brodeur did with the Devils. Obviously not to the same extremes, but yeah, you either have to be really damn confident you're getting one of the decent goalies in free agency this summer at a reasonable price, or you got to keep them.
Since we spoke last, we were recording with you as the Red Wings game was, as the Red Wings were playing the Devils last Thursday. And the third period was one of the most abysmal periods of the Red Wings season, which is saying something. They lost 4-1 to the Devils.
That screenshot of the Red Wings Twitter feed going around was heartbreaking. Those poor Red Wings social media workers, we feel for you guys.
And then they lost the same 4-1 score to Boston, and then 5-1 to Pittsburgh. So fun fact.
Moving up in the world.
I had plans, annual plans with a group of friends on Sunday, and it coincided with the Pittsburgh game, and I went, you know what? I've covered nearly every game this season. I'm fine with this reprieve. I know how this game is going to go. Pittsburgh's on a tear. They just got Zucker. Detroit is not looking good. They're at the tail end of a road trip that's currently 0-3, probably going to be 0-4 after today. So I was able to watch half the first period before I left home. We went to this bowling alley, bar pub thing. What's up on 400 square feet of projector screen? Pittsburgh versus Detroit. I hate national broadcast games when the Red Wings are good. Oh man, does it grind me when they're on it when the Red Wings are bad. And it's just like whoever's deciding this just needs to realize that, yes, the Red Wings are a historic franchise, but no, they are not even remotely good enough to be putting on national television this year. It's really just, hey, everyone, watch Crosby and Zucker pump their stats against this terrible garbage AHL team.
Is it just me or have the Red Wings had a lot of national games?
They've had so many, especially the last, they have, I think they have a dozen on the year, and it feels like all of them have come in the past month.
Fun fact, if a bunch of games go a specific way over the next 48 hours, the Red Wings could be mathematically limited from playoff contention tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
It's a long shot because there's I think 7 or 8 games that have to go a very specific way, but they could be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs February 18th. The playoffs start in April. This is why we need the Golds plan, though. Imagine getting that much of a head start.
Oh, man.
The Red Wings could lose 9 games in a row and probably still get a huge points head start on everybody else.
There's a couple people who comment on every kind of positive thing I put out there, which I have to do. Otherwise, you will kill me and I will also kill me because it's a long season. And they say, no, we need the Red Wings to be bad to tank. Man, they are 15 points behind 30th, and they have 30th place has 2 games in hand on them. That is a potential 19-point difference. Detroit is finishing last. Root for wins.
Again, think of context in your head. The Detroit Red Wings could go on a 7-game winning streak, and 30th place could go on a 7-game losing streak, all in regulation. The Red Wings are still in last. Are either of those two things very likely to happen? Less than 1%. So we are at the point in the season you can very comfortably sit on your couch, get hammered, and actually cheer for the Red Wings to win because it doesn't matter. The sucky part about this is they're very not likely to, but you can hope for it.
You can hope for it. I know this doesn't affect anything. I know Detroit has an 18.5% chance at winning the draft lottery no matter what. It doesn't matter who has what behind them. If one team owns all other draft lottery picks, Detroit still has an 18.5% chance. It doesn't matter. It's them versus the field. That said, Ottawa owning their pick and San Jose's pick irks me because I don't think Eugene Melnyk should be rewarded for running a franchise into the ground, ruining an arena deal that would have put a Canadian franchise in their downtown core instead of out in the middle of nowhere where there's only one major artery going in and out, which ices over because they live in Ottawa. He ruined that. He traded away Mark Stone. He drove Erik Karlsson out of town. He got rid of all these great players. And now you're going to be rewarded with Alexis Lafreniere and then Jamie Drysdale or something. No. They're already getting 2 insane talents with their 2 probably top 10 picks. I am not for Ottawa getting first overall. I'm sorry. Give them second and third for all I care. Not first overall.
And there it is, boys and girls. Ryan has just guaranteed Ottawa the first overall pick.
Of course they're going to get it. Because right now they're sitting at, I believe, a 19% pick.
For what it's worth, since the current system has been implemented in the draft lottery, the team that finishes dead last has won the first overall pick every other year. And do you know what didn't happen last year?
Oh, that's right.
So if the pattern holds, Ryan, look, statistically, this should have never happened this way. It's just a fluke, but
root for Ottawa and San Jose. And if you're saying, Ryan, you're thinking too much with feelings, fine, here's some objectivity for you. Ottawa's in the Atlantic Division. Do you really want to play Alexis Lafreniere and then one of Jamie Drysdale, Tim Stützle, Quentin Byfield, blah, 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 every night for the next 15 years? No. You do not want that. There's already enough powerhouses in the Atlantic. Tampa Bay, Boston, and Toronto all are in the Atlantic, not to mention Florida. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Speaking of that, you want to hear a really, 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 really fun stat that just irks Leaf fans that gets me so happy? Since Sheldon Keefe took over the Leafs have the 4th best record in the entire NHL in that time frame. First is Tampa Bay, 3rd is Boston. So they still only have the 3rd best record in their own division in that time. This playoff format sucks.
If Florida is able to make up their 2 games in hand, I believe Toronto falls back out of a playoff spot.
This is going to be fun watching. Even if they make the playoffs or not, it's going to be fun watching them melt down the wire. Because when they get pumped by Buffalo, my Twitter timeline is a dark, dark place.
Okay. we're going to do a tankathon, but I actually have one question for you.
No.
Would you take on PK Subban's contract? $9 million for 2 more years.
What's the trade?
A deal. What would be the piece that would have to come back to justify it for you if you're seeing?
Honestly, I like PK Subban, not much.
Right? That's what I'm thinking. Like, if they have the cap space.
New Jersey wanted to unload PK Subban. He's got 2 years left, right?
Yeah.
3rd round pick. Sure. Let's go.
Thank you. Because
I'd probably do it for a 5th or a 6th because PK Subban would be a valuable asset to the Detroit Red Wings for the next 2 years. In a couple of years where they're probably not going to be big game hunting in free agency, they're probably going to suck. And if he's the guy that teaches Cholowski and Hronek how to properly QB a power play, cool.
If a half-decent prospect or a second comes, yeah.
Gravy. Also, this is a team that's in desperate need of some personality, if we're being honest. I'd take on Subban just for the entertainment value, honestly. The Red Wings are a very boring hockey team in every sense of the word.
And all of that is assuming PK's decline is permanent, which when a talented player declines like that, you are just ripe for a look how he recovered his career and now he's effective. Like, look at any of the stalls. Like,
New Jersey's not actually considered getting rid of.
I don't think so.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm like, where's this coming from? Because
I don't think their want for cap space. I think they have like $37 million in cap space. Okay, we're going to run a tankathon because we're sick and we're broken. And I don't think the Red Wings have won the last like 5 times I've done this. And Ottawa, Alexis Lafreniere. Minnesota, Quentin Byfield. Arizona, Tim Stützle.
Oh, that's not the worst case scenario, at least.
And Detroit, Lucas Raymond or Marco Rossi or...
Hell yeah. That's the mentality I'm taking. Lucas Raymond, a Red Wing? Hell yeah. Marco Rossi, a Red Wing? Hell yeah. Tim Stützle, a Red Wing? Hell yeah. We're going to ignore wherever Alexis Lafreniere ends up, because that doesn't matter. We are just being given a Lucas Raymond. It's great, isn't it? We get him for free. All it cost was our pain and suffering.
A long season of pain and suffering. Do we want to talk specifically about any prospects right now? Or are we going to wait post-trade deadline to maybe post-trade deadline, then we start in-depth stuff?
That's what I was thinking. I'm trying to think. I haven't watched too much prospect stuff. Other than Corey Proman just did kind of like a European tour and did the Bean Pot, and it wasn't a Red Wing specific article, but he made it a very specific point to hone in on a couple of Red Wings prospects that impressed him in those U18 or U19 tournaments over in Europe, the 5 Nations, I believe it was. He was very impressed by how competent Gustav Berglund was, and he had very complimentary things to say about Elmer Soderblom. So
yeah,
there we go.
Soderblom's been getting a lot of, that's for you, Lars, but he's been getting a lot of attention.
Those 2 guys were picked in the same round of the same draft, weren't they? 6th round?
Yes.
Yeah. That could be a very, when I watched Berglund at the development camp, I went, wow, he is surprisingly competent, was about the best thing I could say about him. But to hear he's progressing well, I've not watched a single Berglund game this year. So to hear he's progressing well is very promising. And we've all heard about Soderblom's production in the Swedish U20 League this year, which is comically good.
I'm going to move us along to some quick hits, and they are very Department of Player Safety themed. We're going to start with Zack Kassian, who kicked someone in the chest with his skate.
Oh, yeah, we haven't talked about that yet. I got yelled at on Twitter so much about that I forgot we hadn't actually talked about it.
Yes.
Because most people seem to agree with me in the sense that what he did was wrong and bad, and that his suspension was way too light. But here we are, because I made a joke, kind of half serious, half joke point where if Chernak, as he's trying to stand up there, like his hand slips or something and he falls forward, Kassian could kick him in the throat, and we're talking about a murder.
It's like a Clint Malarchuk situation here.
Like, he kicked a guy, donkey kick style, with his skate. He literally attacked a dude with a knife, if you want to really get down to the bare bones of it. Yeah, he didn't kick him that hard. I get it. That's a blade. It doesn't take a lot of force to cut somebody. I have had a dude on the bench hop the bench in front of me, and his skate just grazed my wrist and opened it up for 3 stitches. It doesn't take much. So the fact that he purposely did it in a kicking motion. Even if he just brushed his jersey, I start that suspension at 10 games. The fact that he actually made contact and had a little bit of force into it, they got this wrong by less than half. They weren't even close on what this suspension should have been.
You can throw out the entire situation where someone can say, yeah, Brad, but he didn't hit his neck. Or, yeah, like it wasn't likely that it was going to be anywhere but his chest. Look at the idea of someone made a conscious decision to use their skate as a weapon on the ice. Not their stick when they're slashing, not their fist when they're punching. They use their skate in an attempt to hurt or affect another player on the ice. That is Pandora's box. Because if you allow that, it's going to keep happening, and then someone will end up bloodied or something worse on the ice. Look, I'm not going to say 7 games is nothing. I was actually thinking if this is less than 5, then like legitimately George Parros needs to be fired yesterday. When I saw that it was 7, my thought was I would have given him 20 games. I would have given him 20 games because what is that? It's a deterrent from someone ever doing something so stupid again. When someone, throws a dirty hit or does something else suspendable, yeah, there's always player safety at risk. But if we're going to call a spade here, like there's a certain window or a certain amount of leeway you have where that hit's probably not going to kill someone. A skate blade will cut open an artery. It'll cut open, there will be blood on the ice, and that is not the look the NHL wants. That should have been 20 games in my mind. That should have been 20 games, not for that act alone, but to also be a deterrent from anyone else being so stupid. And while we're talking about people being stupid, Zack Kassian went on and on and on, and it was this whole dramatic thing with Tkachuk about the code, and you just don't do that. Where'd the code go? Because I'm pretty sure the code would say don't kick someone with your skate on. What a joke.
We're 2 hockey players who grew up with the code, and I think we can agree the code is bullshit. Everything about it is stupid.
The code is whatever that person wants the code to be to make their actions justified.
Exactly. Absolutely 100% right. The code is not like in Pirates of the Caribbean where they follow it strictly. No, it's different to everybody. The theory of it is pretty close for everybody. Yeah, don't screw with our players. Don't be cheap. And, if you do something, we're going to come back at you. But it never works out exactly like that. Everybody's area of what's clean and dirty is wrong. How many fights do we see after a big clean hit? It's stupid. Everybody's got a different definition of it. We got to stop talking about that. The player safety needs to get their head in gear because I will argue that we've had a lot of bad iterations, but the current iteration of the player safety department is the worst it's ever been. Because as Evander Kane teed off after his 3-game suspension, nobody knows what's what anymore. I don't like Evander Kane. I think he's one of these guys who crosses the line way too much. I think his 3-game suspension for elbowing Neil Pionk in the head was probably a little on the light side, at least closer to correct than the Kassian thing was. But he went off, he showed a video or quote tweeted a video of someone making the exact same hit he did and they got no suspension.
Yeah.
And I agree with Evander Kane 100% in everything he said in his statement. It's inconsistent. It's not fair. Nobody, players, coaches, anybody is what is and isn't a suspension anymore. There's no consistency. There's no pattern. He went off about how horrible of a job they're doing. And every word he said was right because at no point in that did he say, I didn't deserve my suspension. He's like, he didn't even mention his own suspension other than in the context of what's different from that hit to my hit.
Zdeno Chara, got a get out of jail free card again because he is just tall. He cross-checked Gallagher, was it? Yep. In the throat.
There goes his Lydia being candidate.
Yeah. In the throat. And then Gallagher got an embellishment penalty. And Zdeno Chara got off with a $5,000 fine, which is the equivalent of, I think Steve Dangle put it out on Twitter, like us buying a coffee.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. He cross-checked him in the throat. Why is Zdeno Chara always allowed to do this crap? Like, why is he always allowed to just use a stick as a weapon or just hit people in the head with his stick or his fists or whatever? And he just never gets suspensions. And the league is like, well, he's very tall. Because what is that relevant? He should have more of it. It's like when you there's very few instances where a high sticking call isn't on you, and that's when it's a follow through on a shot. Otherwise, you have to be responsible for your stick. Same way, you're responsible for your stick even if you're 7 foot $1,000,000 or whatever Chara is. It's so stupid, and that's another one that the Department of Player Safety dropped the ball on.
This is a joke, and the NHL needs to do something about this department immediately. Everybody laughed when George Parros came in. Oh, they're getting a goon to run in the player department. And we're all like, yeah, but like these guys know the in and outs. It's probably not actually a bad thing, because if you look at a guy like Chris Pronger, he's got a pretty good head on his shoulders, even though he was one of the goons on the ice, albeit more talented. Nope, this George Parros situation has gone as hilariously bad as everybody jokingly predicted it would. And it's not that has he had one suspension where everybody's come in, ooh, that's a bit harsh. No, he's come in light on every single one he's ever given out. It's horrible. Player safety, they need to take that out of the department's name, because it doesn't matter. They don't care about the player safety at all.
And you know what? George Parros is a smart guy. He's Princeton educated. He's an Ivy League NHL player or NHL alumni. Drives me nuts. There's no consistency. So many times players get off with nothing. Last point. And this is relevant to the Red Wings again, because this is one that actually had a little spark in me, almost the same way Gerard Gallant did, and that is Bruce Boudreau was fired from the Minnesota Wild, which I think is intriguing, because I think Bruce Boudreau was doing a good job with not a lot to work with sometimes.
He's a phenomenal coach. When I sent out a tweet after the news that Gallant and Boudreau are both on the market and Detroit is sitting on their hands or whatever, and everybody's like, oh, I don't want Boudreau. Everybody missed a point where he's got the second highest winning percentage in NHL history as a coach. And they're like, yeah, but he's only ever gone to the conference finals once. Yeah, a lot of the teams he's coached probably shouldn't have made the playoffs. So how many times has Bruce Boudreau had a roster where you're looking at and going, yeah, they should win the cup?
Yeah.
Rarely. Maybe his early days in Washington, which, again, you can criticize him all you want for them, because those teams probably should have went farther than they did. He was a rookie coach at that time and has gotten better over time.
Coaches develop the same way players do. I hope people know that.
Yeah. Bruce Boudreau didn't do the best job in the world with the Capitals in his first few years. Oh, well, he got better. And again, compared to what we have, is anybody going to say no to a Jeff Blashill for Bruce Boudreau trade right now? I mean, Boudreau's not my first choice of the guys on the market. I think Gallant still would be my go-to. Boudreau is probably in the top 3. At worst. So I don't know what Minnesota's thinking. They trade away Zucker, and then Bill Guerin says, yeah, but we're still going to make the playoffs. We're still going for the playoffs. Okay, I get that. That's fine. You got a really good return. I can't argue. And then you fire your coach when your mediocre team with a bad roster is 3 points out of a playoff spot? Don't get it at all. And who's your replacement? Are you pretty confident you're getting Gerard Gallant? Are you pretty confident you're getting Peter Laviolette? You better be.
This is poised to be an interesting summer. And it could be like a big nothing burger, and they could just pick up the last year option on Blashill, because, if Yzerman is of the mind that coaching is not what he's worried about right now, then fine. But this could be a big summer's worth of news. We're going to head over to overtime. Starting with our Patreon supporters. Our patrons get their comments read out on air every overtime as our way of saying thank you for making this show happen. We're going to start with David. He says, howdy guys. To ease the pain of this season and Ottawa probably having a better chance to grab Lafreniere, I've already started looking ahead to the Olympics. If you had to put a current Red Wings player in the following events, which would you choose? 100-meter dash.
100-meter dash. Oh, that's Athanasiou.
Athanasiou. Diving.
Athanasiou.
Archery. Anthony Mantha?
Are we talking? So archery would be like your sniper.
Yeah.
Zadina. Mantha's got a more powerful shot, but Zadina picks corners better than Mantha does.
Judo. Jake Muzzin.
Anthony Mantha.
Marathon. Dylan Larkin. Plays a lot of minutes. Or Philip Roenick.
Darren Helm.
Thanks for all that you do, and I look forward to sporting one of your bumper stickers soon. Matt Bacher says, hey guys, let's say in an alternate reality the Wings took Quinn Hughes instead of Zadina, who was taken by Vancouver. Is Zadina the runaway Calder favorite on a line with Pettersson?
Maybe, actually.
Cheers and thanks for all you guys have done this season. Misery Loves Company has taken in taken on a whole new meaning this season. Haroon Khan says, hey guys, I would comment something long detailing how done I am with Blashill and each veteran player on this team who's let me down so much, along with the entire fan base. It's shameful the way they play at this point. It's not exaggerating that I could sub in for Abdulkader and dig in better than him. In case you didn't get the dig in reference, it's what plays on repeat in Blashill's voice in the Red Wings locker room. I don't think he goes in to coach. I think he probably leaves a Bluetooth speaker in the locker room and plays dig in on repeat. Hey Blashill, we've been digging in for 5 seasons now. For God's sake, say something else.
Dig in deep.
I can't with this guy. I'm so done with him. What improvement have we seen? Every player has regressed except for a handful of young guns and a 30-something-year-old goalie. I don't care if the team's bad. It's on the coach. We're historically bad. It's on the coach. He can't find a way to stop some of the bleeding. All I wanted was a respectful year and something to look forward to, but this depresses me more, and I don't know how long this rebuild will take now. Before this year, I was hoping it would be 2 more. Now I don't know. I still don't know how I've watched every game this year, and I don't drink too. Anyways, hope you guys didn't get too tired by reading this long comment. Thanks for all you guys do in this tough season. Let's go Red Wings. By the way, if someone thinks I'm wrong about Blashill, give me 5 good things he's done in the last 5 seasons, and I'll take back my comment. Just Your Average Cheech says, so what's going on with these massive overpays? And gosh, I wish Detroit had someone would overpay for. Anyways, stay fresh cheese bags. And speaking of which, what happened to the cheese bag you guys at the meetup? I still have it. I just have to kind of unpack it. I put it in a box while we move to the new house. K-Waz says, what's up, dudes? Been a bit since I've written in. If you guys had the ability to watch the U.S. If you guys have the ability to watch the U.S. NCAA basketball tournament this March, try to do so because it's going to be absolutely bonkers. There's no clear-cut favorite, and chaos is amazing. Yeah, I watch every year.
It's about the only time I watch NBA playoffs and I watch March Madness, and that's about all the basketball I watch. I'm the definition of your fair weather fan.
Before this next comment, I'm going to qualify this by saying we're not going to be weighing in on this for obvious reasons. I understand it's a big topic in the hockey world and we have nothing substantial to offer here, so let it unfold as it will. Jonathan McCleish says Team Biz or Team Dan, talking about the Biz Nasty Dan Carcillo thing.
Oh yeah, that's wow.
In all seriousness, these two have more in common than not. Both have held their hands up to varying degrees of past indiscretions, and in a world where there's not really a path to redemption, they've been given one. Sit down over some cold ones and sort it out. It'd be nice. Owner of the WWP, Rowan, says, hello, puppets. It is me, your favorite puppet master. When will I be receiving my first royalty payment from all the sweet, sweet Patreon bucks we rake in each week?
When you find Terry.
As a new owner of the podcast, I will also be conducting a full performance audit. Given trade deadline is a week away and I'm working phones kicking tires to determine your values. Hard decisions need to be made, and I'm not afraid to make them. So the season is still going, which is most unfortunate. If you're keeping count, the Wings are only 39 points out of a playoff spot with 21 games to go. But at least, at time of writing, we lead the league in games played. Yay, mathematically, the Wings can be eliminated from playoff contention this week. Stay tuned. Maybe we've made a trade by the time you're reading this comment, so we all have something new to be upset about for a while. In the meantime, I, amongst many others, are just glad that Terry is back. His comments were refreshing amidst the usual sea of sycophantic nonsense. Jersey time. Top 5 non-Red Wings road white NHL jerseys. We are all Terry.
Okay, top 5 road white non-Red Wings. Number 1 is Vegas, not up for debate.
Vegas is there. Pittsburgh for me.
Yeah, you're always on the Pittsburgh ones. My love of the Rangers will always stay high. I think Chicago gets a nod here.
Chicago.
So that's 3. Got to think of 2 more, eh?
I'm looking through here. I think you're right about the Rangers. Yeah, I think you're right about the Rangers. We'll give you the Rangers here. One more.
Road whites, can we count Buffalo's white and gold ones?
No, I think those are their
they're all, I know they're alternates.
It's tough.
I'm literally writing
Minnesota's.
Yeah,
Minnesota's
I'm big fan of Minnesota's.
Yeah. I would say St. Louis, but I would say their road whites are actually the least good of their amazing jersey set.
Out of all the sets they wear, yeah, I would agree with that. I'm struggling for a 5th here. Everybody else's is like Matt.
Did we not say, we said Vegas, New York, Pittsburgh?
I didn't agree on Pittsburgh.
Minnesota. How do you not like Pittsburgh?
They're fine. I didn't say I hated them. They're fine.
I think when Buffalo moves to their new jerseys, and if Calgary moves to their whole no black outline color scheme, theirs will qualify.
Yeah, they'd be up there for sure. Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona's is really good. I really like Arizona's. All I have to get back to our tab here. Everett Johnson says, I'm a few days late on the congratulations, but way to go on 5 years. I'm proud of all of you. Here's a fun little revisionist wrangle for all three of you. What has been your favorite memory as it relates to the podcast? What would you have done differently or done more of? I appreciate you boys, and here's to the next 5 years. We appreciate you, Everett. What's your favorite memory of the podcast?
Well, I'm going to take out all the meetups and stuff like that because those are obviously number one, but those didn't technically happen on the podcast. My favorite memory is when I dropped the not so subtle hint that Crystal's pregnant, and it took Ryan 5 minutes to catch on that what the onesies I just threw on the table meant. Watch it. Evan just right away. Oh no. And Ryan just sitting there. Oh, look at this. This is cute. And Evan having to yell at Ryan. And then just watching the, oh.
I will say I recovered, and for the second baby, I got it right away.
Yeah, the second time. That one was a little more obvious, though, because Mika's shirt literally said big sister.
Yes. That honestly probably was number one for me. If we want like a sad or like a hilariously weird number one, I think it has to be you and I sitting on the couch watching Moritz Seider get drafted. 6 overall. Just because of how wild that was.
Spending an hour watching Evan eat a pineapple.
Yes.
Was weird but hilarious.
Things that I wish we would have done more of is actually a really good question, because I've been thinking a lot about this, and I wish, like, we feel so fortunate for being where we are, and we feel, proud because we've grinded to build this show to where it is. I wish we would have done more of allowing ourselves to feel good about this sooner. We joked for a long time.
We're allowed to feel good about this.
And that's exactly it. Like, we joked for a long time about like, oh, we're just a bunch of guys talking, which is what we are. But that's what everyone is, right? Like, unless you're being paid by a team, like, I think we didn't give ourselves enough credit for the longest time. And I don't think that that means we're right about everything. God, no. That's not even it at all. But like, this show got built up because of you guys to be the biggest Red Wings show out there. And that's like a huge for us. And we kind of didn't let ourselves believe it for the longest time. Like, we would look at it, we'd be like, no, this is crazy. Like, something's wrong. And
what's wrong with these people?
It really, by just like allowing ourselves to enjoy it, it's really allowed us to kind of do more stuff and believe in ourselves and believe in making, this show bigger and better every day. And not to say like, we deserve all the praise in the world. Like, literally, we mean it when it's you guys who made the show what it is. But I do wish that we would have spent less time not allowing ourselves to enjoy it. But we're enjoying it now.
I'm going to give more of a practical answer. Once we get more time, I'd love to do a lot more with YouTube and live events.
Yes. And draft lottery. I hate how they don't announce a draft lottery date, because we need to set that live stream.
We'll literally put a counter on our website.
Yeah.
Countdown to sadness.
Stay Fresh Cheese Bags of Fournier Company says, hey fellas, yes, you got your comment in on time. So Prudential Center is really nice, huge, spacious concourse, beer under $10 and great views of the ice no matter where you sit.
How sad is it that beer under $10 is a benchmark?
Jumbotron is enormous. The fans didn't chirp us until the Devils potted those 4 goals in that wonderful 6-minute span of the third. Saw a little bit more fire and urgency from the bench, but Blashill's still hurting this team. I'm still on the fire Blashill train, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see his option picked up for next year. I think it's more likely Yzerman absolutely blows up the roster. He has a history of expensive buyouts and will probably let a lot of these RFAs walk. I'm all for it. Stay Fresh Cheese Bags. You're not cool for drinking Malbec. Nobody is. It's the hipster of wines. So the next time you're at a party and some top-knotted, bearded, skinny jean track-jacketed waste of oxygen proudly exclaims, I love a good Malbec, while jamming the corkscrew right in without removing the foil, you throw them out the front door, DJ Jazzy Jeff style, and set their footprints on fire to cleanse the house of their scourge. I refuse to pair a cheese with Malbec. That is hysterical. I have never drank Malbec. Chris says, hey guys, the draft lottery goes how people expect, and we get 3rd against all odds. Good news, Ottawa doesn't land either pick above us and ends up 5th and 7th. Given the top 10 in the draft, what would the minimum you would take to move back to a hypothetical 5th or 7th? I think a second round could be enough, since this would be pick 32 to 34 for 5th and a 2nd and 3rd for 7th. No, I would take more than a second round pick to move back from 3rd to 5th.
3rd to 5th? You're guaranteeing yourself one of Raymond, Rossi, Drysdale, or Stützle.
But
how big do you think? Here's the way it's likely going to go. How big of a gap do you think there is from Stützle to Rossi?
Observable, not massive. I think I think Stützle's in the class with probably Byfield, with Byfield being the clear leader, but he's in that class. And I think Rossi, Raymond, Drysdale are all in that third tier.
Yeah, I've got the way this draft's going, fifth. When you get to pick 5, that's my fourth tier.
So then
I have Lafreniere in a tier, Byfield in a tier, Stützle and Raymond in a tier, and then the next group.
And then do you take a second round pick to move yourself back?
32 in this draft or 33, I would very strongly consider it. This is where nuance comes in, because who's picking fourth would matter a lot, because if it's a team like Colorado last year sitting at 4, we're pretty positive they're grabbing a defenseman there. So, i.e., we were pretty certain Byram was going 4 last year. If we're pretty certain Drysdale's going 4 this year, so I'm passing on Stützle at 3 to take Raymond at 5, I'd probably take like a third round pick happily, because I don't think there's a gap between them, or vice versa. So it's a calculated gamble, but yeah, it would all depend who's sitting fourth.
Joseph D'Elia says, "Sup, my dudes. New Jersey now has 3 first-round picks in 2 seconds. How crazy is it that interim GM Fitzgerald could get more back for Coleman than Shiro got for Hull? Let's say Detroit's third in the draft. What's an acceptable trade that both sides say yes to New Jersey trading 2 of their picks for Detroit's? Basically, pick the 2 draft positions by New Jersey. Both sides would agree to swap. Thanks."
New Jersey wins the draft lottery, picks first overall, and then I'll happily trade anything for it.
If we're talking like a 5th and like a 12th.
New Jersey's probably picking higher than 5th, if we're being honest.
Yeah, well, everything can happen. Obviously, I don't think New Jersey would do that, but if you're taking anywhere in the 5 range and then in the teens, I'd be happy to take that to move up to 3rd. Because again, there is an appreciable value at 3rd that I think you won't get at 5th, guess wise, in terms of drafting, but not so much where you wouldn't want to listen to offers like that. We have time for some Reddit comments. Leonard McWhoopa says, "Hello, friends. I made it out to my first Red Wings game a few weekends ago, and naturally we got shut out. If you had to formulate a blockbuster or a big trade that Stevie would possibly go for, who'd be included and what would it be for?" Oh, man, I would love to be able to answer these questions. I think a really strong consideration would be that PK Subban trade, because of how viable it would be for the Red Wings. But the thing is, New Jersey doesn't need cap space, and they're not about to give him up for nothing. They got him pretty cheap, I think. But what's another blockbuster that they could run?
The Red Wings could run? Well, the thing is, you got to think of premium assets around the NHL that could be on the trade block. I'm not...
Mantha for Deline.
Yeah, but they're not going to trade Deline. I'm trying to think, who's a team that might be looking to get rid of a really, really good player for reasons X, Y, or Z that would make any sense for Detroit? And I'm not seeing a lot of names in my head that are making any sense.
All of them revolve around Colorado's wealth of high-end defensemen and their need for scoring top-end talent. So you're talking blockbuster, you work in a Mantha or Zadina in there, and then you're talking about Makar or Byram.
No, they're not trading Makar.
No
chance. You could maybe pry Byram away from them for the right piece, so that's probably as close as we're going to get.
Would you do Zadina for Byram straight up right now?
No, because we know Zadina can do it at the NHL level now. That extra little bit of certainty. And again, organizational need. Detroit needs the forwards more than they need the defense right now.
Also want to know your thoughts on removing the trapezoid. Yes.
Yeah, I don't like that rule at all. I hate it. Because goalies are... I get why the rule was put in place initially, but now every goalie can handle the puck and start a rush on a change or something like that. Let them get out there and get the puck. Please, just do it.
Southern Wing 97 says, "Good day, Wheelers. I was laughing my ass off when Rowan made you think he was Terry, and I laughed even harder at Ryan saying he was going to fly to Australia to kick Rowan's ass. Be serious. We all saw and heard your reaction to some tiny Canadian spider. You'd be scared to leave the airport down here in case you saw an actual spider. You're not wrong. I'm literally all talk all the time. I will not back up what I say. Question time. Most years there's some hype about the franchise altering capabilities of the top couple picks, and I know there's no way to do this objectively, but please try. Given what your opinions of them were in their draft year, please order these 10 players if they were all in the upcoming 2020 draft. Lafreniere, Byfield, Hughes, Kakko, Deline, Svechnikov, Hischier, Patrick, Matthews, Laine. So what we thought of them in their draft year.
Okay. Out of all of them, I think I was the highest on Matthews.
Matthews is being compared to McDavid, where everyone knew it wasn't quite the same, but still same kind of game altering.
So right now I'm trying to think, and then there's a bunch of second overalls in there, right?
I'm gonna go
Matthews, Dahlin, Lafreniere, Hughes. Am I missing any other first overalls in there?
Hischier.
Yeah, we weren't that high on him. Probably then Svechnikov, Kakko, Hischier. Patrick's definitely the bottom of the list for me. I was never high on him. That high on him anyway. Am I forgetting anybody else there other than...
Did you say Laine?
No, Laine I would probably slot in...
I think based on what we...
Somewhere between... Just above just above Svechnikov.
Based on what we thought of Laine at the time, wouldn't he be 10th? Because he wasn't...
No. We were very big on Laine.
Were we?
Yeah.
It's hard to remember. I appreciate you remembering.
Yeah, no, we were high on Laine, so he's probably ahead of Svechnikov.
I have Matthews.
Of all the second overall picks on that list, I think we were highest on Laine.
I have Matthews. I have, based on at the time, Dahlin, just because the Red Wings had no defensive stalwarts. And then I have Lafreniere, and then Hughes. And then it's pretty similar.
Like I said, here then...
Kakko, Byfield, Svechnikov. Or Svechnikov above Byfield,
I didn't put Byfield in. I would have Byfield around... I would have Byfield around Kakko.
We're working with pretty clear lanes here, and it's... Matthews is the top of all of them, and I think that's held pretty true. Spark Zook says, love the new table and the YouTube videos. Southern Wing finishes by saying, love your work on the pod. Here's to 5 more years and maybe me making out to another meetup one day. Yes, please. Spark Zook says, love the new table and the YouTube videos. Subscribe on YouTube. Oh man, we cleared 1,000 Spotify subscribers. Did I talk about that before?
Nope. Sweet. So are we 4 digits on every platform now?
Almost. Instagram and Facebook, but it's like,
no, I don't count those because we don't use those really.
No. If you guys want to know how to support the show, click subscribe literally however you get your podcasts. We do capture those metrics. Spotify and iTunes are huge. Leave us ratings and reviews on those. Oh man, is it good for us. Congrats on 5 years. Podcast has come so far, and I'm very happy for you guys. Only 21 more games to suffer through. Stay fresh, Rowan for coach, and give me John Scott. The Magic Man 1343 says, how do you guys come up with your draft rankings? Is it from watching players themselves or based on other rankings on media like Craig Button or Bob McKenzie?
I wish I could say it was entirely based on my viewings, but honestly, if I'm able to watch more than, I'll say 8 full games outside of like Red Wings games in a month, it's a lot. So we do watch all the prospects we're invested in. Some guys will only see once. Other guys like Lafreniere I've probably seen like 6 times this year already. Just to, not that I need to form any further of an opinion. It's just for fun now. And then couple that with, I do factor in as many rankings as I can find because I want to make sure what I'm seeing isn't completely out of there. Now that won't always tip the scales for me, because if I see a guy and I'm like, no, this guy, like, I don't care what other people say, I know what I'm seeing. Like, I'm still, to this point, I've still been pretty bullish on Lucas Raymond, whereas he's falling most people's. I still have him at 3. Like, Stützle's come up, so now that there's an argument there to be made, but I'll be shocked if Raymond comes in lower than 4th on any ranking I do this year, unless he just has a disastrous finish to the season. But yeah, it's literally a factor of everything. I take my own opinion in my own eyes higher than anybody else's. But if I have a guy, let's say 15th, and every other ranking has him 7, 8, 6, 4, 7, okay, I'm missing something. And then I'll go back and rewatch to try and figure out what I'm missing.
Yeah, we do have a few different services and tools that we use as a podcast for player evaluation. And like Brad said, anybody who's relevant to Detroit, and that's an expanded window this year because we saw what happened last year with Moritz Seider. We were lucky that we had a view on Moritz Seider because that was just like an interest piece that we did. We do watch videos of them. We do watch their condensed highlights. We do listen to and watch and read every breakdown. Looking at other lists is good, like Brad said, for just seeing what we might be getting wrong. And there is a substance to consensus for sure. That said, this also reminds me of something else where I really do think that this is a situation where kind of what I was talking about with Everett's comment, where we're like, didn't like allow ourselves to take some credit from time to time. Like we put work into this. Like we're not just talking about rankings and then making up our own. Like we actually put a lot of work into this. So like the notion of we're just like some, meathead fans yelling into a mic. I mean, yes, obviously, but we're not doing this without substance. Like we're backing this up the same way like people who are paid to do this do it. Obviously, they're probably better than us, but that said,
doing a lot more of it than we are.
It doesn't make us like we're not technically professional while we do it, but we are doing everything we can to bring you guys like the best analysis. Like it's genuine analysis. We just happen to try to bring an entertainment value to the podcast as well. Like we're not pure, making fun of Evan and talking about this talking Ken and Mickey bobblehead. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, the ideal day is if our Patreon or we get enough sponsorships one day to do this job full time.
Oh, God, yeah.
Oh, then my approach to how I'm doing my rankings is going to change dramatically because I can probably have enough time and effort to ignore everybody else's rankings and just actually, because right now, like straight up, once you get past second round prospects, I've probably had 0 viewings of any of them unless they play on the same team as someone ranked in the first round because I do not have the time to track, like tracking 60 prospects. It feels like too much. If I had to go 100 and something deep, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm hoping by the time we're full time too, the Red Wings are like contending for the cup. So I don't even need to worry about that much. But ideally in a perfect world,
it's the Steve Dangle method. We started when they were bad and now in however many
still
years.
bad.
Heartsease said, you're Steve Yzerman. It's July 1st. Taylor Hall comes to you and says he wants to be a Red Wing. What contract do you sign him to? 8 years times however much, 12 million. I don't care.
I'm not as big. I love Taylor Hall, but I'm not as big a fan on him as others.
8 by 11 is what I'd give him. 7 by 11, I should say, because you can't do 8.
7 by 9 for me.
He will not take $9 million.
He will not. If he says he wants to be a Red Wing, I don't think I'd go more than $9 million on him. Especially given his age.
Man. How old is he?
Late 20s. He was drafted in 2000.
He's 28.
I do not want to be paying 35-year-old Taylor Hall $11 million.
Let me look at his Hockey Viz stuff because he's a phenomenal player.
He's a very, 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 very talented player that I think for the next 3 to 4 years is still going to be an elite player in the league. But that will be about half of the contract.
If Taylor Hall wants 7 years, I'd give him 7 by 10 right now.
Yeah, here's the thing. All his good years are going to be when the Red Wings are bad, which is worth factoring in.
But he would accelerate. You're no longer looking at 3 4 years.
Oh, no, he absolutely accelerates it. But do you think the Red Wings are 1 piece away from being... Do you think the Red Wings are 2 pieces away from being a contender? Do you think the Red Wings are 3 pieces away from being a contender?
I know you're right, and I hate logic right now because I just want something to be happy about. Eric says...
Too damn bad, Ryan.
Hypothetical says, we've won the draft lottery, now it's draft day, you're Steve Yzerman. I like all these hypotheticals where we're Steve Yzerman. The phone rings, it's the Montreal Canadiens. They're due to pick 6th and have offered you one of 2 deals to choose from. Their whole 2020 draft for the 2021st overall pick. I hate those deals and I'll never take those.
Nope.
Or Montreal's 2020, 2021, and 2022 first round picks.
No.
They're desperate to draft the generational French Canadian superstar to be their franchise has been waiting for. Do you consider this? What might you counteroffer? What would it take for you to give up number 1 and drop back down to 6 as fate seems to have it? Happy 5 years.
The future first round picks are a problem because if Montreal gets Lafreniere, in theory, they're going to be a very good hockey team because Montreal is far less pieces away from being good than Detroit is.
You're talking...
I'm not trading Lafreniere for mid or late first round picks. I don't give a shit how many of them you give to me.
Romanov.
I think the starting ask, and I would probably command more because Lafreniere's a franchise player. I want 6th overall. I want Nick Suzuki. I want Alex Romanov, and I'm probably coming for another premium pick.
And they won't
minimum.
Pay that. And they won't pay that for good reason.
No, of course not. It's insane, but you'd be insane to give up Alexis Lafreniere.
We have some time for hashtag Ask WWPs, and we do see these. So if you ever want to ask us a question, tag it that way. Al Robbins says, let's play this season over-under goal differential game. Negative 125.5. Over-under. Brad.
Over.
Wait, under as in like worse than that? Over as in worse than that? Or
over as in they're going to be negative like 130 something.
So yeah, you're taking, the under, I suppose. Yeah. Or over. Yeah, I'm with you. It's going to be worse than that. Anthony Polifrone says, would you be disappointed if we made no moves at the deadline?
No moves. Yeah, I don't expect anything substantial though.
Drunk Uncle Mickey Redmond says, looks like the Wings have been scouting some Kings games. Do you think it's possible Yzerman makes a move for Toffoli to add a solid, productive depth piece? We're struggling big time in that department, among other areas.
Absolutely not, because Toffoli's contract expires this, and Detroit's literally the last team in the league that should be taking on a rental.
And Moose asked about the very high market being set, which we chatted about earlier. Speaking of Twitter and Patreon, we're going to be doing, it was supposed to be today, but schedules got a little bit mixed up. Unfortunately, long weekends to do that. But we are going to be doing an all Q&A episode, Patreon exclusive episode of the Winged Wheel podcast. That post is up on Patreon. So go leave your comment, your question there. And we will be doing a fun all Q&A episode. We'll probably get drunk for that, honestly. Also something, if you guys are a Patreon supporter, and you want a bumper sticker, there's also a post in there. Please comment so I can get one out to you. If you actually have a vehicle and you want to put the bumper sticker on your vehicle, let me know. Also, if you're on Twitter or you're not a patron and you're just a listener, we still appreciate you. If you live in Michigan or somewhere with lots of Wings fans and you'd be willing to put a Winged Wheel podcast sticker in your car, send the Winged Wheel pod account a DM. Also, guys, like I mentioned, like or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Leave ratings, leave reviews. Spotify is huge. iTunes is huge. Just hitting subscribe. Those are other ways to support us that mean a lot. 5-star reviews mean the world, especially with the algorithm. So, just some other things to put out there. And then our closing, she tells you all of this. So listen to her too. She says it a lot more gracefully. We're going to wrap up this week's episode. We're going to be back at you on Thursday. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for bearing with us with this long weekend. Have a happy Family Day, a happy President's Day. We want to thank our patrons, our name level sponsors, Ryan's Favorite Bastard, Arjun Shankar, Dead Panda Society, brand new name level sponsor, Bradley Smith, brand new name level sponsor, Andrew.
Fantastic name.
I told him he was the best Brad that we know. Andrew Bohan, Scott Martin, Kayla Thompson, Mitchell Shinkowski, Aaron Taylor, Jacob Turner, Matt McKay, Matthew M. Rice, Luke Johnson, Mike Reed, Ryan Lewis, Langabir, Clayton Van Dyken, Kalen Wood, Hassam Al-Qassem, Arjun Shankar again. God, he always gets me to read it twice. Charlie Elkins, Hannah Lee, Sean Levine, Connor Leighton, Danny Jr., Matthew Keeler, Craig Kibble, Rob Thiel, Simon Anderson, John Evans, Kay Waz, and Stan Olson. Those are the people that make the Winged Wheel podcast happen. So thank you so very much. And sorry, we got one other question. Sometimes people send them in our messages, and I want people to know that I didn't ignore them. Alan Snyder says, hey guys, I like to bond with my son by listening to your podcast together. He doesn't have a choice though. He's 5 months old. I'm sure you get plenty of questions about roster projections, so I apologize in advance. But this is how I console myself in times of despair. It also gives me clarity on what we should do with fringe players like Svechnikov. When you project out of 2 or 3 years with all the prospects and draft picks we have, there just isn't room for him. Can you do me the favor of projecting a 2022 lineup, including our 2021 draft choice in that lineup? Let's hope it's ratty. Let's save that for a Patreon exclusive where we do future projections. Thank you, Alan. Thank you all new patrons, and have a great day. We will see you Thursday.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockey Town Evan.